how you talk to yourself or about yourself to others, or how you think about yourself matters. And the next key to being kinder to yourself and nurturing your relationship with yourself, cultivating self-love, self-worth, self-trust, self-confidence, this is the action part, and that is to set boundaries with yourself. Welcome to Ebbs and Flows with Erin. In this show, we're getting real about navigating the ups and downs of life together. I'm your host, Erin, and we're ditching the pressure to have it all figured out along the way because honestly, nobody does. We'll explore all things healing, growing, creating, and connecting. And if you deal with anxiety, depression, being a highly sensitive person, or just feeling overwhelmed by life sometimes, I see you, and this show is for you. My intention with these conversations is simple: to leave you feeling empowered, validated, and most importantly, reminded that you are never alone, no matter where you're at on your own journey. Learning that we all have the power to heal genuinely changed my life. And the best part, healing does not have to be complicated. The smallest changes really can make the biggest impact, and it can be joyful, fulfilling, and something that we do together. So join me in getting real about what it means to heal. Thank you for being here, and now let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to Ebbs and Flows with Erin, or welcome back to Ebbs and Flows with Erin. Whether you are listening or watching with me today, I am grateful to have you here. In today's episode, we are going to talk about how you can be kinder to yourself and why it is the key to changing or improving your life in any and all aspects and areas. And this can sound so simple, but we all know it really is not that simple. And this is something that I kind of wish I learned a lot earlier in my journey of healing, or just in general in life, because a lot of the time when we want to make changes or improvements in our life, we start with external action. But the reality is that action follows feeling. So it is a fact that you have to start with your inner world and how you feel about yourself. Nurturing a healthy, positive relationship with yourself is the root of creating any healthy improvements or change in your external world. And that sounds so backwards, and it's really backwards to how we usually do things. And it's why a lot of habits you try to make or changes you try to make don't end up sticking, and they end up falling flat when you aren't also, or even beforehand, doing the work on your relationship with yourself, cultivating self-love, self-trust, self-worth, self-confidence. Because when you love yourself, you feel worthy, you feel confident, you trust yourself, you take action aligned with those feelings. And naturally, the actions that you're taking in your life are aligned with the changes or improvements that you want to make. So rather than feeling like you have to make external changes first, and then you'll feel like you love yourself or feel more worthy or more confident in yourself, the real key is actually to cultivate those feelings within yourself first. So this is why the key to all changing, growth, healing, improvements is being kinder to yourself and fostering your self-concept. So how can we do this? Number one, audit your self-talk. Start to pay attention to how you talk to yourself. How do you talk about yourself? Notice your self-talk. And this is something that we're often not even conscious of, how negatively we are talking to ourselves or about ourselves. And when you start to pay attention to it, you will quickly realize that there is some improvement that could be made, because what you feel, believe, and say about yourself shapes your entire reality. Something really interesting that I learned about in my meditation teacher training is our reticular activating system, our RAS system, which is a part of our brain that filters the information that we're taking in at all times, which we're taking in millions of pieces of information throughout the day. And this is the system that filters out and decides what it's going to prioritize for us to be aware of and focus on. And the most interesting part about this is that it focuses our awareness on what we already believe, or what we already think that we know, or what we are interested in. So this is why awareness is key, because as soon as you're even simply aware of something, you will start to notice it more. So for a practical example of this, to try and make this make sense, Think about if you were ever shopping for a car or doing some research about a new vehicle that you wanted, and you found one that you like, and suddenly for the next while, you seem to be seeing this vehicle everywhere, and you feel like you've never seen it so much ever before. The reality is, you've probably seen it on the road just as much, but you just weren't aware of it before. Now, this vehicle is of importance to you, it is on your radar, you're aware of it, so your brain is choosing for you to be aware of when you're seeing it. Whereas before, your brain, the RAS system, did not deem this as important information for you to be focusing on. So I learned about this in my meditation teacher training because this is where meditation or mindfulness in general is very important for neuroplasticity, because taking the time to be still and observe our thoughts and observe what we want to create or what our desires are in life, the growth or change that we want to make, awareness is the key, because that immediately allows our brain to start prioritizing and bringing our focus into the direction that we want to go. So when it comes to your self-talk, you can utilize this by, when you find yourself saying something negative about yourself or to yourself, notice and replace that talk immediately with how your ideal version of yourself would think or talk about you. Use affirmations in the moment that steer your brain in the direction that your ideal self, the self that you desire to be, would think and believe. This is rewiring your brain to steer it into the direction more naturally as time goes on, to lean into the direction of more positive self-talk, cultivating more feelings of self-love, self-trust, self-worth, self-confidence. How you talk to yourself or about yourself to others, or how you think about yourself, matters. And the next key to being kinder to yourself and nurturing your relationship with yourself, cultivating self-love, self-worth, self-trust, self-confidence, this is the action part, and that is to set boundaries with yourself. So often when we talk about boundaries, we are talking about setting them with others, which is important, but even more important is setting boundaries with yourself. Setting boundaries with yourself means that you are creating habits that prioritize your long-term well-being, even when it feels difficult or it's tempting to ignore these boundaries. And this is not about perfection. Perfection does not exist. Nobody is perfect. And having boundaries set with yourself does not mean that if you falter, that you have failed or that there's anything wrong with you. It's about having a guidelines for the action that you take in your life, and when the times come up that you do falter on them, you are able to look to these boundaries and shift back into taking the action that you know you want to take in your life that is helping you create and live the life that you desire. So it's not about beating yourself up or getting down on yourself if you make a mistake or make a wrong move. Setting boundaries with yourself isn't about creating some sort of strict routine that you have to follow every day, or strict action items that you need to do on some sort of strict schedule. Boundaries are general guidelines. So for example, some examples of setting boundaries with yourself are prioritizing rest, challenging your thoughts, not believing all of your thoughts as facts, nourishing your body with what you eat, prioritizing moving your body, doing hard things in the moment to create your desired future, having time limits on the amount that you are scrolling on social media, deciding who and what you are allowing to affect your energy or what you are giving your energy to. For my fellow highly sensitive people, especially, prioritizing alone time to recharge, knowing the amount of caffeine if you drink it and you're someone who experiences anxiety, know the amount of caffeine that you allow yourself to have in a given day. You can set boundaries with yourself on the types of environments that you allow yourself to spend your time in. Or again, for my fellow highly sensitive people, having a guidelines for yourself on the amount of time you're going to spend in busier, more chaotic environments. If you're someone, again, who's highly sensitive, or has struggled with anxiety, setting boundaries with the types of content that you expose yourself to. So for myself, I have a history of being obsessed with listening to true crime podcasts, and it really was affecting me at one point because I was listening to them for hours at a time while I would work, and it was actually affecting my emotional state. And so I had to set a boundary with myself for how much of that type of content I allow myself to be exposed to, or things like watching the news. Setting a boundary with how much I allow myself to expose myself to that. There are many examples, and this is something that you have to reflect on and decide for yourself. What are the boundaries that you're going to set with yourself, creating the habits that align with your long-term wellness goals, visions, dreams, even when it feels difficult and when it feels tempting to ignore them. Because having boundaries with yourself creates self-respect, self-trust, self-worth, self-love. It is being kind to yourself to have boundaries with yourself. It is an act of self-respect to have boundaries set with yourself and follow boundaries set with yourself. Because in my experience, without that, it is so easy to acknowledge what you want in your life, the shifts or changes you want to make, the improvements you want to make, the goals, dreams, visions, desires that you have. But it is so easy to get stuck and fall flat on making those your reality, because the reality is that life has its ups and downs. Life can be hard. We can have our mental struggles, and not every day are we going to feel so motivated and disciplined. And these are the days when having boundaries with yourself is going to be the most important, because it's the days where you don't feel so motivated or disciplined, or maybe you're having a wobbly mental health day, and it's very tempting to make choices that don't align with the vision and desires that you have for your overall wellness and your dreams and goals and the life that you want for yourself. So to have these boundaries to look to in those moments to guide the action that you take, that is the most kind that you can be to yourself. And this is where you're going to see true healing, growth, and improvements happen in your life. And as I said, it's not that it's always easy, and it's not about being perfect, but it's about always being able to come back to being kind to yourself, to respecting yourself, and feeling worthy of creating the life that you desire. And knowing that you're worthy before you're seeing these changes take place in your external world, because feeling worthy and feeling love for yourself and respecting yourself, trusting yourself has to come first, and the action will follow, and that is where all the magic happens. And I'm not an expert at this. I don't know if anyone is. I feel like this is a lifelong practice that you always have to be practicing. But in my experience, in practicing it for the last years, the number one thing you can do for yourself, if you're going to do anything at all to better your life in any area, is to be kinder to yourself. So I hope that this has been valuable in some way to you today. I hope this resonates with you. And when this feels really difficult and you are in a moment of not feeling so great about yourself, I see you and I have empathy for that, and I know how that is, but I promise you, you are never alone no matter what you're thinking, feeling, or experiencing. And even if it feels like you aren't believing it and like you're trying to convince yourself, really try to speak kindly to yourself, because it really does matter. Okay, thank you for listening to me today. If you have any comments or questions, as always, I love to hear from you guys. DM me on Instagram at ebbsandflows222 or send me an email. Everything is linked below in the show description. I'm sending a lot of love and gratitude. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.